What does it mean to be an expert anymore, in math or in anything else? Being a mathematician used to mean spending a lifetime mastering rules and conditions required for research and execution, the process of solving problems, effectively working through myriad steps, searching for and resolving prerequisites to each step, drawing connections across functions within a problem, and much more. An unreleased Anthropic model spent a day and a half testing about 650 ideas on a problem open since 1859. AI is moving the edge of unresolved mathematics, but it is moving the edge of research and execution and solving problems even more. Now here's the claim I'll stand behind. The mathematician, or any person of expertise in almost any field, is becoming whoever can frame a hard problem and verify the answer. AI is making the research and execution that used to take a lifetime of skill building something that anyone can do. That's today's lead. Also in today's episode, expert medicine over video, towns setting the terms for compute and surveillance, public models weaponizing Zoom, and researchers opening hidden reasoning. Come with me, let's get into it. A staffer with no significant math training set a 60-agent research program in motion with one sentence. Anthropic announced the result on Monday. So who actually did the mathematics? The target was the Riemann hypothesis, one of the most famous unsolved problems in math. It has held out since 1859. The Clay Mathematics Institute still offers $1 million for a proof. Now, the prize remains unclaimed. The model pushed the confirmed range of the hypothesis further forward, and that's a modest gain on a giant problem, not solved yet. But the modesty is intentional here. Calling every increment a breakthrough would make the word itself useless. The staffer told the model to take a real stab and then walked away for about a day and a half. The model tried roughly 650 different approaches and used 60 parallel copies of itself. So think of a small research department appearing for a single assignment. Some agents searched for ideas, 2 of them developed the key ones, and then others supplied the supporting work, checked the results, or wrote the paper. And half of them went down completely dead ends. Now that last part may be the most human detail in the whole run. Research usually means being wrong over and over and over until one path finally holds. Now 3 different layers share the credit here. The staffer chose the problem and started the run. The model organized the search and developed the argument. 2 Anthropic mathematicians then checked the work. And the team also formalized the argument in Lean, a language that checks a proof one step at a time. Lean doesn't accept a persuasive flourish or a skipped step. The logic has to hold all the way through on its own. And that gives us a solid result and a much larger question about authorship. For centuries, even millennia, the word mathematician bundled several jobs together. A mathematician chose the problem, invented possible routes, rejected bad ones, built the proof, and checked every step. This run split those jobs across one person, a model, dozens of subagents, human reviewers, and a formal checker. So the scarce part moved here. The person at the center did not need years of training to just begin the work. They just needed access and a worthwhile question and a way to check what came back. Now, 6 days ago, we covered Discovery Loop, which is meant to run thousands of self-revising scientific investigations. And this is the same broad pattern packed into one hard math problem. Research starts to look less like a craft that one expert must perform from beginning to end, and more like a process that one person can simply convene. Anthropic deserves credit, of course, for the result and for submitting it to formal checking, but that credit doesn't cover everything else the lab shipped. Researchers also found that Anthropic's hidden reasoning channel could expose passwords and API keys, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Both of those facts do belong together. A lab can broaden human capability, but still leave some basic security work unfinished. The larger opening is bigger than this one bound, too. People who could never personally carry out advanced mathematical research may soon be able to start it, guide it, and test the result. So the circle of people who can ask math to move just got wider. All right, shifting here, that wider circle still carries higher stakes in medicine as well, where billions of people still lack reliable access to competent consultation. Can AI handle the parts of a medical visit that disappear inside a text box? A typed symptom leaves a lot behind. A clinician may need to see a rash or hear the catch in someone's voice or watch how an injured joint moves. They also have to guide the exam itself as the conversation unfolds. Google Research and DeepMind tested that harder setting with AMIE. It's built on Gemini and Project Astra, and it also uses several agents together with different parts of the system handling the conversation, the visual cues, and the diagnostic reasoning. The study used trained patient actors in simulated consultations. Primary care physicians handled the same cases, and specialist raters scored the encounters. Now, these weren't real patients in a clinic, so it's still unclear whether this could actually be deployed. But within that test, AMIE did remarkably well. The specialist raters rated it above the physicians for thoroughness, diagnostic accuracy, the management plan, and communication. The patient actors also preferred the video consultation to the older text chat format. That preference is important because a consultation is more than getting the likely diagnosis right. A patient has to understand what is happening and feel able to describe it. Video gives the system more of the signals that make the actual exchange work in the first place. Google says that AMIE remains a research system, so patients can't book an appointment with it today. And of course, deploying it for real would take more than a randomized simulation with actors. So that boundary is honest about the result here. The system showed expert-level judgment in this setting. It has not showed that it can operate safely across the mess that is everyday clinical care. And Google also appears in the reasoning trace vulnerability that we'll be covering later on this episode. Its models demonstrated serious clinical judgment while the company was still closing a channel that could leak passwords and keys. Capability and security seem to be moving here at different speeds, but still, the direction is extraordinary. For generations, where you lived, rather than the level of your need, decided whether you could get expert medical judgment. A competent video consultation can reach anywhere that there's an internet connection. AMIE moves that possibility closer, even if nobody can quite schedule it yet. All right, shifting away here. So medicine and mathematics are advancing, but in the meantime, towns hosting AI infrastructure have to set terms before the construction locks them in. How much leverage does a local government really have against the companies building the AI economy? There's no federal law reconciling these fights. Each municipality has to negotiate grid load, water, land, data access, and who pays when the project changes local life. By late June, roughly 300 local proposals sought to ban or restrict data centers, and in July, that count passed 500. Now look at the corporate response. On Monday, Meta announced a $1 billion fund for communities that host its data centers, and before that on Friday, OpenAI sent Texas's governor a letter pledging responsible AI infrastructure development. Both companies described their moves as partnership and good faith investment. Those descriptions do serve the company's need to keep projects moving, but the timing tells us what is changing here. Permits stopped clearing automatically. That $1 billion is meant to move directly to communities that had very little leverage a year ago. Local resistance made hosting costs visible, and Meta responded with actual money. That same local power is also shaping surveillance. Norman, Oklahoma considered cameras from Flock, a company that we've covered frequently here on the Century Report. Flock sells automated license plate readers to police and neighborhood groups. The cameras would have kept data for 30 days with no clear account of who could access it or under what rules. The city council rejected that 9-0, more than once. Mayor Stephen Tyler Holman articulated the question really well here. I guess all crime could be eliminated if you put cameras everywhere, surveillance everywhere, and had drones patrolling the skies. That seems to be the way some folks want to go. But what life are we living then? And that's the core question. Residents would be visible to the network while the people using the footage remained harder to see and harder to audit. That is the big risk we're moving into in this era of change when it comes to surveillance versus capability. Those two things can be easily coupled. Surveillance is very tempting to associate with advancing intelligence, and Flock seems to be riding that wave. More than 80 cities have now canceled or declined Flock contracts. The cameras themselves keep spreading. Nearby Cleveland County approved 20, and local homeowners associations operate their own. A city saying no doesn't make the capability disappear, though. It does prove that residents can demand clear rules before one group gains the power to watch everyone else. And that leverage continues to be uneven. Amazon's planned off-grid gas plant in rural Pecos County shows how a developer can route around the negotiating table. The site is in a community with little power to contest it. Its permitted maximum annual carbon output would exceed the 2024 emissions of any operating American coal plant. But compute does have to be built somewhere. Repeated local bans can also push the heaviest projects toward the communities with the least power to refuse. The answer then is accountable construction, clear costs, and terms that follow the project wherever it goes. Now, the build-out will continue. Through municipal review, a town can decide whether its residents get benefits, protections, and a way to check the systems placed around them. But for now, 500 local bans have already turned consent into a line item. All right, shifting here, consent meant nothing in the Zoom flaw that researchers disclosed on Tuesday. Anyone already on a call could have had their device taken over silently. Now, how hard was it to build the attack? For years, only someone with rare talent, a long timeline, and a large budget could pull off an exploit at this level. The researchers estimated that 5 skilled people would have needed roughly 6 months to do this. The flaw sat inside Zoom's screen sharing and annotation system. An attacker needed no click, download, or any warning from the victim. It worked across Windows, Mac, and Linux, and mobile. The researchers said publicly available AI models found and weaponized it in fewer than 20 prompts. And they also said they completed the job in less than a day. Yossi Torati described the working exploit this way: if you just get on a Zoom with us, then we can take over your device. Zoom has since patched the problem on both its servers and its apps. The 6-month job collapsing into 1 day changes the economics of offensive security, though. Omer Gol called it the democratization of these capabilities. The barrier to entry is dropping rapidly. Now, yesterday we covered OpenAI limiting its strongest new cyber model to approved companies only. That gate may give those selected defenders time to prepare. This Zoom exploit came from models that anyone could access, though. Restricting one model cannot preserve a capability that has already spread across others. Every unpatched system now faces attackers who can search and test at machine speed. Defenders get the same advantage when they point these systems at their own code first. That's what happened here. The researchers found the flaw, they disclosed it, and they gave Zoom the chance to patch both sides of the connection. The old security advantage came from being able to afford the search. As that cost fails, it may pay more to look first and share what you find before someone else sneaks in and uses it. All right, the Zoom exploit reached through a video call, but another flaw reached into frontier models themselves, where people may have exposed passwords and API keys. Could outsiders read the private reasoning that these models are generating before answering? Providers encrypt those step-by-step traces. Users see the conclusion while the working parts stay hidden. That can protect sensitive internal details, though it also stops outsiders, of course, from inspecting how the model reached its answer. Researchers from Tübingen, the Max Planck Institute, MATS, and Sneak found another way in. They gave the encrypted traces to the smaller sibling models that shared the same decryption key. Those sibling models were less constrained, so they read the hidden work aloud. It's like keeping your diary under lock and key, but then handing another copy of the key to a younger person in your family who has difficulty keeping secrets. The method worked against Claude Opus 4.8, GPT 5.6 Sol, and Gemini. The team tested 90 questions on each. Researcher Alexander Panfilov said that all major frontier model providers we tested share this vulnerability. The traces contained more than abstract reasoning, too. The researchers recovered leaked passwords and API keys. Now, all 3 providers have since moved to mitigate the problem. And then the team tried the same probe on Moonshot's Kimi K3. Its hidden reasoning looked strikingly similar to Claude's and GPT's. And that raises the possibility, as we've talked about before, of distillation, or the process of training one model on the outputs of a stronger model. Now, whether or not Moonshot actually used distillation does remain unproven here. The researchers were careful to say that. But it is also worth mentioning that DeepSeek and Inkling showed no comparable resemblance. Researchers and the labs and everybody in the AI space also seem to disagree about distillation, and that disagreement is really revealing. Meta's founder has defended it as central to open source progress. The leading closed labs, though, tend to describe it as theft. Both of those sides and everybody on both of those sides recognize the same underlying force. Reasoning ability can move from a stronger system into a cheaper one. The argument is over who controls that movement and who gets the credit, and they don't say this as much, but it's true, the profit as well. And the security exposure also deserves scrutiny. Passwords and keys should never spill through a hidden reasoning channel. The method also gives outside researchers a way to inspect systems that powerful companies would otherwise ask the public to simply trust from the outside. The researchers could compare how the models reasoned, test whether secrets leaked, and examine signs of how a model may have learned. When people can see how a model reasons, it becomes easier to hold those behind it accountable. That channel is now patched, but researchers know that they'll need to keep finding new ways to inspect what happens inside these systems. Secrecy concentrates power. Independent observation lets everyone check the work. All right, let's close it for today. So who did the mathematics with that Anthropic story, and what does that even mean anymore? A person chose the target, an AI organized the search, 60 sub-agents tried different paths, human mathematicians reviewed the argument, and then Lean checked every step. The old job description placed all of that inside one trained specialist who often would spend a lifetime getting to that point. Today, those roles formed a network around a person who began with one sentence. That same split appeared in every one of today's other stories as well. AMIE handled a simulated medical consultation while specialist raters checked its judgment. Towns reviewed infrastructure and surveillance systems before accepting their terms. Security researchers used public models to find an attack, and then Zoom patched it. Another research team opened hidden reasoning so outsiders could examine what frontier models were doing inside. As more people gain this capability, more people need to check it too. So that doesn't lower the standard. Lean still demands a complete argument. Medicine still needs clinical evidence. Communities still need clear authority. Software still needs patches. AI systems still need outside inspection. What changes here is who gets to participate. A person no longer needs to spend a lifetime preparing and then personally performing every step before they can even begin serious work. They can pose the problem, bring the right expertise to it, guide the search, and then submit the result to checks that others can also inspect. That opens mathematics to more mathematicians, and it opens everything else as well. It opens medical judgment, for example, to places that struggle to keep a doctor nearby. It gives small security teams capabilities once priced only for governments. It gives outside researchers a view into systems built by some of the richest institutions on Earth. Expertise is becoming less like a guarded room and more like a network that people can join. The threshold shifts from possessing every skill to knowing what to ask, what to distrust, and how to check the answer. The next mathematician may begin with just curiosity rather than credentials. If the proof holds, the work holds. And the circle of people able to move human knowledge forward is becoming much larger by the day. See you tomorrow.